Good morning to all of you. So I'm Basvaraj. So I'll be taking geography, ecology and environment as well as disaster management. I hope almost all of you are writing UPSC exams, right? All are, because this will be with concern to the UPSC perspectives. Now some are there who are writing for state governments. For there also the concerns of geography, ecology, environment and disaster management remains the same. Only thing is the terminologies will be differing. If you're talking about the coastal area, of course, Telangana does not have much, but Andhra Pradesh have coastal areas. Then again, when you talk about the ecology and environment concern, biodiversity will be there, flora and fauna will be there, the acts will be applicable, the concerns will be applicable. So whatever is discussed in geography, ecology and disaster management, if you make it as a complete idea of perspectives, then that will help you even in the context of your state government examinations, whatever state you are appearing for. And whatever concepts are there in geography, they remains the same. If you're talking about any landforms, if you're talking about any type of theory, plate tectonic theory will be the same for Andhra, Telangana, India and the world. Take an example of energies, energy which is very much important in the content of any economic development. See here, when we take geography as a subject in general studies, the approach has to be totally different what you are reading in the context of your optional part. Now, don't get much tense about the subject and all. Be feel to ask anything, get relaxed. It is not your collegiate education where you have to maintain strictly part. It's an interaction. Some of you may be having more information, more knowledge than what I am having. It's not that hard and fast rule. So you have to be interactive in the session. You have to be interactive, which will gain you courage, which will help me to understand where the link is missing, how we can connect that linkages. And one thing you should make sure that this exam is not about your words. It's not about your only writing knowledge. It's about something beyond that. If they require only the textbook person, or if they wanted only the person which is having tremendous amount of information in the mind, then they would have gone for all the gold medalists in the colleges as an IAS officer. Why they will spend huge money to conduct exams? Every university will have their gold medalist, right? So all the gold medalists will become IAS officer. Then second rankers will become IPS officers. Third rankers will become IRS and all. So why they want to conduct examination? This exam is beyond your knowledge. 35% is sufficient for this exam. So it does not mean that all 35% are lucky enough. It means that that is a benchmark. That is a benchmark. Now, many aspirants make a mistake of thinking that this is completely difficult to crack. And of course, this is much more easier than your Group C examination. In Group C examination, you will find many students are there who will by heart and get it done. But this is beyond that. Only prelims you will have certain part. But after that mains, it is comparatively easy to crack once you are having flow, once you are having the pattern in which it has to be followed. It's not that difficult. We make it difficult by making some anticipation, which will help us to deviate from the path. Now, when you deviate from the path, then it becomes very difficult for you to crack the examination. Now, general studies is different from your optional part. If you are preparing your general studies in the lines of your optional, then do you think that you will cover the examination, cover the syllabus? No. You will be having many subjects. And if you keep on preparing them as your optional part, then it becomes very, very difficult to consolidate that. That is one thing. Second thing is, it is about knowing the terms and linking them with the proper perspectives. If you try to hold everything with a tight fist, nothing will there in your hand. For example, if you visit any coastal areas, if you catch a sand, you try to hold the sand with tight fist, do you find any sand in your hand? Whatever is there, it moves out. So if you try to keep everything with a grip, nothing will be there in your head. You will lose the path immediately when you try to make the mastery on that. So here it's about understanding, linking and making them connectivity. That is the part of general studies. As we refer that as Samanya Adhyayan. Samanya Adhyayan. So knowing the topics, its applications are very, very important in the context of your general studies. Applications are very, very important. Of course, the concept has to be clear. Once the concept is clear, then only you can write something on application part. You don't have to write any superficial answers here. You don't have to write any superficial answers. If you write superficial answers, then there will be a problem that he may give you superficial marks also to that. Is that clear? So your content should be very well organized. Your example should be very well organized. It's a smart work which you have to do rather than laboriously working for 18 hours, 20 hours in a day. It's useless stuff. You have to be doing it with a smart and limitation of your stress. Is that clear? So we'll come to know how it has to be done for that matter. We'll start with the geography perspectives. Now, before starting the geography perspectives here, now what do you mean by geography as a multidisciplinary? When we use the term multidisciplinary, when you're reading geography, you read about population. So while reading about the population, when you keep the datas, you have to make the tables. You have to make the forecasting of the population where we will be reaching by 2080, and you have to calculate them with some parameters. So hence, when you are calculating that, which subject is used in? Statistics and mathematics, right? So you are using statistics and mathematics. I'm giving you an example how it is linked. Now, if you are reading something about urbanization, urban peoples, rural peoples, then what you are reading, which subject you are focusing here? If you are reading about urban people, slums, urbanization, rural people, you are dealing with society, social society. So you are reading about society or social part, right? Now, seldom or rarely we come across river disputes, interstate river disputes. Now, when you want to make a clear concern about that, what is required to make a settlement with reference to settling the dispute of interstate waters? Geographical boundaries. Apart from that, how it has to be settled? Tribunals. How tribunals are made? Polity. So you need polity. You need polity, boundaries and all. So you have to know something about polity. Is that clear? So polity is also very important. Now, apart from that, when you're talking about, say, earthquakes, volcanic activities, the rocks, the minerals, their composition, for that you need to have certain amount of your science. You need to have something about science. Science is required, right? Then, when you're reading about, say, agriculture, MSPs, forward linkage, backward linkages, right? So all this is something which is referred in economy, right? So you will find something in economy. Right, so hence, when you're reading geography, all these will be a part of that. So when all these are included in one subject, we refer that as multidisciplinary. So hence, we say geography is a multidisciplinary. So that's why we say once you complete geography, it will help you in your paper 1, paper 2, even in paper 3. And if you are thorough in the context, then you can write very good answers in your essays also. Is that clear? So hence, it is referred as a multidisciplinary approach. Is this word clear? Multidisciplinary. Geography is multidisciplinary. Now, once you complete the geography part, so this geography part will help us to understand the surrounding area which is around us. If you are visiting to the theater, we say the noise is very hectic. If you are visiting a temple, then we say the surrounding area is peaceful. If you are visiting a college, again the surrounding area is something different. Now, what you use the term to define that surrounding area? Environment. So what is environment? The physical space. So once you read geography, then it becomes easy for you to make a reference of environment, ecology and environment, right? So here it will help us to understand environment. Now, environment in the sense it consists of living as well as non-living parts. Now, what do you mean by living parts? What are living things? Can we say plants and animals? Flora, fauna, plants, animals, bacteria and all. So life, we refer them as living parts. Now this environment, is it made up of only living parts? It consists of non-living parts. What are examples of non-living parts? What are examples of non-living parts? Fast. You should be giving the examples in such a way that they should be very comfortable. You take your example and you can give the part. Water, rocks, air what you breathe, atmosphere, everything is called as non-living part. So non-living, when we say, it talks about the air what you breathe. It talks about the water what you are using. It talks about the soils where you are staying. So it talks about soils, minerals, right? It talks about something called as light, which is required for photosynthesis. We don't find big trees in the polar region. Why? Because they don't have the sufficient amount of light, right? So all these are referred as the non-living components. Now when we take all these non-living components, when we combine them, they form something called as climatic conditions. So hence in ecology and environment, we make an effort in understanding these parts, how the climatic areas are formed by taking non-living components. So non-living components, when they accumulated for a longer period of a time, say 30 years, 40 years data, then we say it is a climate. So the moment when we say desert climate, what comes to your mind? The temperature is extreme, rainfall is very less, right? Diurnal temperatures are very high. So that is called as the climatic conditions of deserts. When you read your ecology and environment, the geography base will help you to understand that type of. Is that clear? So you should be good enough in these, then you can write very well answers. So when you're talking about the crops, so in Andhra and Telangana, you see that large amount of crops are there which are tobacco. Generally tobacco is there. And certain areas we find sugarcane cultivation is there. Now why don't we find strong cultivation of cotton in Andhra or Telangana? Soil, that is also called as non-living part. The soil defines which type of crops are grown. The climatic conditions defines which type of crops are grown. So once you have accumulated this, then you can apply that to any part of your studies. You don't have to by heart anything. Nothing has to be by hearted. You have to organize your study. What are non-living components? And that is same for all the parts, not only in India, all the parts. So you have to understand how these soils are formed, their characteristics, why you have to make often and often irrigation, why they are behaving like that. Is it clear? So once you did this, then your ecology and environment becomes easy. So composition of atmosphere and these things will be there. And in environment, you have to understand the present structure of atmosphere, the composition of atmosphere. So generally when you are reading about environment, we always come across something called as global warming, climate change. Now this global warming and climate change, it is mainly because change in the components. Change in the components. So everybody knows that it has been changing. Take an example of carbon dioxide is increasing, methane is increasing. So we refer that as a term called as global warming part. Now most of the students always make a mistake in taking the difference between global warming and climate change. Now are both terms same? Global warming and climate change, are both terms same? What is the difference between them? You should open up. You don't have to worry whether it is wrong also. You don't have to be worried because directly I not entered the stage. I was also on that bench. So I had also made mistakes. You have to be courageous. What is difference between climate change and global warming? These are the small things. If you understand, then I don't think you will have any difficulty. If the question is asked on global warming, many students make a mistake of writing that for climate change. If they ask climate change, then they will mistakenly write this as a global warming. There is a difference, right? There is a difference between global warming and climate change, right? So global warming means we are talking only about increasing of the temperature. Climate change includes increasing temperature, decreasing temperature, heavy rainfall, less rainfall, right? So all these, when you club them, we refer that as a climate. So when we say climate change, it is referred as all mixtures in there. जैसे आप कहते हैं ना, if you order Bahubali thali, which includes everything, that is your climate. And if you take only roti curry, that is your global warming. So if they ask climate change, and if you write only global warming, can you expect marks there? If they ask global warming and if you write climate change, can you give any marks there? No. So you should be very clear that what word are used in UPSC questionnaires, and you have to follow that part. There is a difference between climate change and global warming, and that is unique part, and that is applicable for your state government also as well as your central part also. You should be good enough to know that what they are talking, what type of questionnaires are asked when they are talking about global warming or climate change. Right. Now, when these parameters become extreme, say heavy rainfalls have been there. Why? Because change in the composition. Heavy temperatures, high temperatures, more amount of cyclonic activities. So when they occur often and often with high intensities, then they bring socioeconomic losses. So when they bring socioeconomic losses, we refer that as disasters. When you are unable to cope up the condition from your own resources, then we refer them as disaster. See, there are many parameters of defining that. Rich people have huge money. During COVID, rich people, they had money, so they could get treatment in the beginning itself. But what about the poor people? They did not have the financial assistance. So huge casualties were there. So it means that they were unable to handle the situation with their own resources. And what resources we are talking here? Finance. If you're talking about heat waves and cold waves, the rich people will have air conditioners, they will have other arrangements by which they can handle the condition. What about the poor people? What about the people who are having less financial assistance? Can they handle that? No. So such conditions, when they are unable to handle the situation, the losses will increase. And we refer that as a disaster. We refer that as a disaster. When you are unable to handle that condition from your own resources, so you need assistance. You need financial assistance. You need assistance from center. You need assistance from something. Then only you can come back into normalcy. So that is simple aspect of the disaster. Hazard is an event which can be a potential threat. But when you are unable to handle that with your own resources like food, sometimes when the floods takes place, whenever flooding is there, you don't have proper electricity, you don't have proper food, you don't have proper drinking facilities. So it means you don't have resources to handle the condition. And hence the casualties will increase. And hence we say the hazard has become disaster. The hazard has become disaster. So you should be knowing the differences between hazard and disaster. When a hazard has become disaster. Now what is the idea of disaster management? Make sure that hazard is not converting into disaster. Simple as it is. Is that clear? Now, how it can be done? Many methods are there. Early warning systems, right? You are having evacuation which has to be done, or many awareness, mapping everything. So we define them as pre-disaster, at the time, and post-disaster management. So the idea is that you should not make the hazard to convert into huge losses. Is that clear? So there are, again, when you talk about disasters, we have certain disasters like Russia-Ukraine war. We have the bombing of Japan by US, nuclear explosions. So all these are something which are man-made disasters, man-made hazards. And there are certain where we define them as the natural one. Take an example of earthquake, volcanic activities, all these. So these are called as natural hazards and man-made hazards. So you have to classify which are man-made hazards and which are natural hazards. Now, which hazards can be curtailed or stopped, natural or man-made? Man-made. So you can prevent them. You can make all the arrangement in the prevention phase. But certain natural hazards are there. Can you make any type of prevention? So what best can be done there? Reduce the impact of that. Reduce the impact of that. Now, how you can reduce the impact of that? By early warning systems, by preparing all the adaptability, by increasing their capacities, decreasing the vulnerabilities, providing shelters, recruiting that, or making all the medical facilities. So these all are referred as your disaster management. Now, how India is working, how international organizations are working, that's what you will read in the context of your disasters. Is it clear? So you have to have a flow. Then you can write very good answers in the context. So hence this will help you to understand even your disaster management. Is that clear? So hazard, disaster. So here in the context of disaster management, when we say, the main idea is that the hazard should not become strong enough to create huge amount of socio-economic losses. In a very simple term, it becomes disaster when you are unable to handle the condition, handle the event with your own resources. It can be financial resource, medical resources. When you are unable to handle that, then the event is referred as disaster. So that is called as 5 are dead, 10 dead, 11 dead. It is immaterial. It is when you are unable to handle the condition from your own resources, then we refer that as a disaster. That is a definition of disaster. Right. Now all these can be studied only when you are good enough in understanding the geography part. Is that clear? So hence they link each and every part. They link each and every part. Now when we talk about this geography, ecology and disaster management, in the context of UPSC, in prelims, from geography, on an average, you can expect around 7 to 10 questions. In prelims, 7 to 10 questions you will get from geography. Now from ecology and environment, can you guess what number of questions are there? 11, 15, sometimes it is more than that. So 11 to 15 questions you will get from that. And sometimes from disaster management, sometimes 1 question or 2 questions will be there. So if you see that, don't you think that it is having a good amount of presence in your prelims stage? Right. And once you are good in geography, you can write good on ecology and good on disaster management. Now coming to the mains. Now in the mains, you can find all these clubbed in your paper 1, paper 2 and paper 3 as well. So if you organize your study systematically, if you read them carefully, then I don't think you will have something which is 250 plus marks in your mains. GS1, GS2, GS3, and sometimes it may reflect in your essay also. So not less than 200, and average 250 marks will be there. In paper 1 you will find, paper 2 also you will find, paper 3 also you will find that part. Is it clear? So this is something about why it is seen as one of the dominant aspect in the context of your UPSC. Right now, what should be studied in geography? What you should study in geography with your common perspective. See, this is not a class where your intellectual capacity is checked. This is something, okay. Right. So what has to be studied in geography? Open up. It's not a hard and fast rule. आप क्या पढ़ते हो geography में? Open up. Don't get frustrated. Topography, climate, ठीक है. You read topography. You read climate, oceanography, crust. You are clubbing everything in geomorphology. Okay, geomorphology. So in geomorphology, you will get something about interior of the earth. Crust, mantle and core. Then demography. Okay. Then pedology. So no one will understand that in detail, but again we can say soils. Perfect. Then metals. So you can say minerals. Then you should make a mind mapping. Then only your content will. Quantitative techniques, you will read them in your optional, but here it is less. Rocks. Metrology. You will study that in climatology parts. Climate and all. River systems. Okay, then drainage is in this only. Drainage will be in that. Then this is how you have to make. See, if you know what to read, then you can organize your studies. Everybody has cleared class 12th examination, right? So you might be knowing what is geography. What else to be studied here? This becomes base for your part. Economic geography. So in economic geography, what you will read? Economic geography, what you will read? Population you already done in demography. Industries. So when we say economic geography, we always talk about economic activities. Now if you're talking about India, what are the important economic activities are there in India? So why you are missing that term? Why you are missing that term? So when you talk about economic, there is agriculture. Then in India, do we have only agriculture? We are having industries. Then tourism, so everything will be reflected there. Tourism industry. Then zoology we will be reading in your ecology and environment. Flora, we have segregated that. You will be reading in geomorphology. Where you are staying? Rural, urban settlements, rural settlements, urban settlements. Yes, you will talk about all those shipping and all. It means that what you are talking about the shipping, you are talking about something called as transportation. So without that, economic activities can be fulfilled. Road transport, air transport, railway transports, they are also very important. So it is about transport. Railways, airways, waterways, we refer them as part. Now apart from railways, waterways and airways, we have also find certain type of transportations which are seen, and many students make a mess of that. Which is that transportation, which has gained the momentum since from last 5 or 10 years. Transportation. You read only about roadways, railways, airways, waterways. Waterways, it includes that inland waterways and inland, and that both are included in that waterways. Inland means rivers and all, right? And in that we are coastal also, which talks about international track. Apart from that, UPSC asked the questions which have been developed recently in last decades. Don't get much stress. We have something called as pipeline transports. Have they gained momentum or not? LPGs, liquid transports, mineral transports, gas transports, and they are the areas where we find setting up of fertilizer industries. The raw materials of that are used for setting the fertilizer industries, right? So pipeline transports, why they are important, how they are significant for economic growth of India. So you have to be careful in those parts, not the traditional, updated one. Refineries, petroleum refineries, the end product of that can be used as a raw material for fertilizers. And fertilizers in India plays an important role. And now we find the gases are also being transported from that, the liquefied petroleum gases. So we are having many such gas lines or networks are there, like Hajira Bijapur pipelines, HBJ. We are having the Reliance pipelines which are there. And these are playing very important role. So we have to understand something about pipelines which have been made a strong presence in the context of your transport facilities. Updations are important there. Is it clear? So we have to make reference of this transport facilities where they are moving. Now in the context of programs, can you give any recent example of the programs which are taken in the transport sector in India? The biggest programs. That is also one part. Connecting of, somebody was telling, Gati Shakti is a tool. Gati Shakti talks about accelerating economic development, and it talks about integrating different sectors in one platform. Integrating different sectors in one platform so that by 2025, India can become $5 trillion economy, become self-sufficiency. So that is a mode in which we are refining economic sector. Understand the difference. That is a mode, that is a machinery, that is a methodology by which we are increasing the economic infrastructure. I am asking, give an example of any economic project. Bharatmala, Sagarmala, Golden Quadrilateral is a part of the NHDP, National Highway. So when you club this Golden Quadrilateral, Bharatmala, Sagarmala, when you club that and you mix them, that becomes your Gati Shakti. Organizing them and making sure that all are properly coordinated, and that will help in India's economic growth. That concept is called as Gati Shakti Master Plan. And the programs involves Bharatmala, Sagarmala and all these. Is it clear? Then only you can write something. If they ask something and if you're writing something, that becomes difficult. I hope you are getting the point. Right? So you have to be very clear in that part. So when the question is asked on infrastructure, you have to be very careful in writing what it is required. And it's not that entire content has to be thrown there. You have to be very good enough in putting them. Is it clear? Now this is what you have to read in the context of your geography. Something which we will be reading. Agriculture includes animal husbandry, crops, livestock resources. No, when you talk about crops and livestock resources, what is important for the crops? Soils and fertility, water, then rain is required. And in India, the rainfall is through a mechanism which is called as periodic reversal of a wind, and we refer that as, in India, the rainfall is periodic reversal of a wind. We refer that as monsoon. Monsoon. Now, when you are not having the supply of water, when there is no rainfall, then will you leave the crops as it is? What you will do? You will? So that irrigation is referred as supplying of water through artificial means. So you have to study about irrigation. You have to study about irrigation. If there is no proper rainfall, how you will supply the water artificially to the agricultural crops? So that supply of water through the artificial means, we refer that as irrigation. Now example of means are drip irrigation, tank irrigation, canal irrigation, well irrigation. Is it clear? So you should be diluting that. Once you know that, then you can answer very good questions on that. Now in irrigation, do you have any schemes? Which scheme? Mission Kaktiya, that is from your state government. Then apart from that, Jal Shakti is a ministry. Jal Shakti is a ministry. Don't worry, when it is wrong also, no problem. Recollect. Recollect. Because by this you will gain, by this you will remember the things for a longer period of a time. Indira Canal, it means canal irrigation, perfect. Then program which has been seen there. The more refined program. Have you heard about Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana? Right, so that is also a part of this. We'll try to see that. Watershed management. Watershed management. All these are part of your geography and they are very well connected with agriculture, because in India, if there is no rainfall, you have to supply through the artificial means. So you have to understand what are arrangements. Arrangements includes watershed, lakes, ponds. Every time you talk about lakes restoration, ponds restoration. Why? Because the water table has to be increased there. So all these are important in the context of your geography part. Is it clear? So you will be reading these parts which is referred as physical geography, and this is something called as human geography part. Human geography part. Demography, economic activities, settlements, etc. We refer them as human geography. And these all are physical geography. Physical geography and human geography. Is that clear? So we'll try to understand physical part and the human geography. Now once you know the physical geography, what is idea behind reading the physical geography? What is significance of all these? Why we have to read this? Okay, then? Then to know the resources, what do you mean by resource? Like soils and minerals. What do you mean by resources? Okay, understand this. You are having a river. This is a river, right? You are having a land. You are having a land, right? Then you are having groundwater. You are having a groundwater, right? Now, you use a technology in that. You construct a dam across a river, multi-purpose project. Now, once you constructed a dam, then this will help you to make irrigation facility. This will help you to get water for drinking. This will help you to get the water for navigation. The water will be available, so you will use that for navigation. Right. So it means that the river has been converted into something which is providing economic benefits. Economic benefits. So it is giving some economic benefit. Do you agree with this point? So without the dam, is it possible? This is one. Now, this is a land area. Huge lands are there. Now, in this land, you have taken this part of a land and you have made tilling, plowing, and then you have started growing crops on that. And this activity, we refer that as agriculture. So, we refer that as agriculture. So, the moment when you do agriculture, it means that you are getting some economic benefit or not. So, it is providing economic benefit. Now, groundwater is tremendous, but once you use them for your drinking and irrigation, then only it will give benefit. Then only it will give benefit. Now, in all the cases, we find that they all are providing some economic benefits. Now, this river, the land, groundwater, we refer them as sources. Sources. Any source which provides economic benefit, we refer that as resource. Any source which provides economic benefit as resource. Any source which provides economic benefit. Now, can we say entire land as a resource? Can we say this entire land as a resource? Entire land, can we refer that as a resource? Only this part is referred as land resource. And if you construct building here, then this becomes resource for that area. So, any part of a source which is used for economic benefit, then the source becomes resources. Then the source becomes resources. Is that clear? Minerals are there in the earth's interior. When you extract them, we refer them as mineral resources. When you extract them, we refer that as mineral resources. Soil resources. Ocean resources. Anything which provides economic benefit, we refer them as resources. Now, what is important to us, source or resource? Resources. Is that clear? Now, we have to make sure that these resources are to be kept in the proper way. Resources are there where we have to use the benefits of that. We have to use the benefit, and the next generation should also reap the benefit of that. We refer that as sustainability resources. Is that clear? No. If you don't maintain the proper characteristic of resources, will they be surviving the benefits? We refer that as the resources have become degraded or the resources have become depleted. So hence, it's our duty to make sure that the resources are not only created, they are sustainably maintained. So in India, it is not about developing resources. We are developing the resources. Are we managing the resources? No. So hence, resource management is important in the context of India. And that's what we refer them as sustainable resource management. Is it clear? Why? Because they should reap the benefit to the next generation as well. So when these resources are about to end, we refer them as depletion of resources, depletion of groundwater. When these resources degrade, then they will have a problem like air pollution, water contamination, water pollution, land losing its fertility. This is what we are facing, right? Land has lost its fertility, water contamination, air pollution, which are responsible for affecting entire existence. Is that clear? So hence, when you use the word resources, it is having a weightage. So resources talks about something. From source, you are developing resources. And the next question is that how to maintain that resource. We refer that as sustainable managing, sustainable resource management, sustainable resource management. Now here, the major thing is you have to understand what is resource, then what is the way in which sustainable resource management has to be done. Now how the sustainable resource management is done? By using acts like water acts, pollution acts, rejuvenations, programs, schemes, then only you can restore them. So that should be kept in the mind. From source, what resources are developed and from where we are using. Now what is the major idea of resource development? What is significance of resource development? इससे क्या benefit होता है? Economic benefit. Apart from that, in geographical terms, या फिर in general, how you can define that? What benefits you get from this? There are certain areas which are very well developed. There are certain areas which are less developed. उसको हम क्या कहते हैं? There are certain areas which are very well developed. Industries are there, economic activities are there. There are certain points. Take this part. If you take Telangana, and if you take an example of Mizoram. So whatever facilities you are finding in Telangana, do you find in Mizoram? So here what we say, this is well developed, this is comparatively backward. So we refer that as they are having differences. We refer them as disparities. Never use the term backwardness. We use the term disparities. If you are comparing 100 rupees with 1000 rupees, so 100 is small and 1000 is bigger. Relatively we talk. Now when we compare 100 with 1 crore rupees, then 100 is smaller, 1 crore is bigger. If you compare 1 crore with 1 trillion, then we use the term disparities. Never use the term backwardness. So hence in India, do you agree that there exist regional disparities? Right. So Telangana, when you compare with Mizoram, is very well developed. Now entire Telangana is developed. In Telangana also you will find regional disparities. Right. If you take Hyderabad part, is Hyderabad completely very well developed? So hence we find that phenomenon where some areas are more developed and some areas are less developed. We refer that as regional disparities. In India, regional disparities always exist. I hope it is clear. Regional disparities always exist. Now how to reduce the regional disparities? By developing resources. If you develop the resources, then the regional disparities can be reduced. If you develop an irrigation project, then they will have more fertile lands. If you develop infrastructure, they will have more employment opportunities. So by that you are reducing regional disparities. Now very important thing is regional development, regional resources development. And hence in geography there is something called as regional planning. There is called as regional planning. So geographers always talk about regional planning where it helps in developing the resources. Now can you give any example of regional planning in India? Regional planning in India, which helps in development of the regions. Have you heard about Rayalaseema? Have they developed that region? It means the idea is to make resources there. Now in the same way, when we talk about Damodar Valley, DVC, Damodar Valley Corporation, so that is called as resource development. First project where they emphasized on providing economic benefits. So all the areas wherever they provide economic benefits in the context of India, we refer them as regional development. So the main idea of regional development is that people should get benefit and it will help in reducing disparities, economic disparities, social disparities. That is the whole idea of regional planning in the context of India. And for that you have to understand which regions are suitable for developing. Which regions are suitable for developing. So if you know this concept, then you can write very good answers in the context of your geography part, even in all the parts. So in India, there is always a question of regional disparities. Even if you take this part of Hyderabad, do you think that entire patch is very well developed? You will find after this one gully is something which is less developed. Disparities are there. Right. So use the term appropriately. Regional disparities. There is nothing called as forward and backward. So we always find disparities are existing in the context of India. Now, is there anything which is working on reducing regional disparities? Yes. One is regional planning. Then second one is we have something called as Finance Commission, Planning Commission. Now Planning Commission is replaced by Niti Aayog. So don't you think that they are working to reduce regional disparities? The allocation of the fund, financial is done. How? To create the resources, and that resources will help you to reduce regional disparities. Take an example of multi-purpose river valley project, irrigation projects. They all are referred as regional planning. Lift irrigation projects, dam constructions. So they all are seen as a part of India's effort to reduce the regional disparities. And these all are part of your geography. Is that clear now? So this you should keep in the mind rather than just reading what is plate tectonic theory, rather than reading about in detail about those. They will not help you in detail. Their applications are very, very important. Their applications are very, very important in the context of your geography. Is that clear? So source, resource, why they're important, and why we are having Planning Commission, why we are having Niti Aayog. Because to reduce the regional disparities. And what they create something called as the projects which will help in creating assets to the people there. Is it clear? So this you should keep in the mind. So when you talk about source, resources, is it clear now? So this has to be taken into consideration. Not entire area is called as resource, the part which is used for economic benefit. So idea is to create resources and sustaining them for a longer period of the time. So that is where ecology comes into part. Managing them is ecology part, environmental concern there. Is it clear now? Okay. So this is something which you have to keep in the mind, right? Now, at least you know what is to be read in geography and how the approach has to be seen here. Right. Now, apart from this, apart from region, when you talk about the geographical perspectives, what else to be taken into consideration? Which books you have to take into consideration at least? See, don't get much disturbed in any part. You read your NCERT books. You can read from class 7th up to 10th. So if somebody is weak, you can start reading from 6th. So from 6th to 9th class, you read and make notes. 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. You won't have more content there. You read them and make words and definitions of that. Make notes of that. Maybe 20 page it will be, not beyond that. And class 10th, 11th, 12th. Read them sentence by sentence, word by word. More than sufficient. Class 10th, class 11th and class 12th. You read them word by word. That will help you. And tomorrow when I start the class, you can start reading class 11th geography, because I'll be starting with geomorphology part, so that will sync with your class 11th geography. Right? So geomorphology, then climatology, then we will move on to oceanography. Then once we complete that, then you start reading Indian geography. Initially, if you start reading Indian geography, you will never understand. You will never understand how the Himalayas have been formed. So first we will complete those parts, then we will move on to Indian geography part. This is what you have to keep in the mind. Many say that, what about GC Leong? If you are having GC Leong, you can read. If you don't have, don't break your mind. Take limited books. Read them often and often. Make your own notes. That is more than sufficient in the context of your general studies. Right. So, बहुत से बच्चे, they make a mistake when somebody says you read somebody's spectrum and all. The same thing you will find here. I can assure you that if you read your NCERT book, class 10th, 11th, 12th, word by word, sentence by sentence, everything you will find in that. With the explanations what I am giving, along with that, more than sufficient. Right. Plus, in geography, you have to depend on current affairs. Like volcanic activities, earthquakes, different phenomena which takes place. For example, when you talk about cyclones, when you talk about earthquake which has taken place, or when you talk about any type of the area which is in the news, area which is in the news, or any type of project, any type of project. So all these will be your current affairs, will be your current affairs. Any dam collapsing, any type of floods which you find, any types of events which are seen in the context of geography. So you have to depend on current affairs. They are very important. And these current affairs, you can use them as examples when you're writing your mains answer. Examples when you're writing your mains answer. Because every year the UPSC conducts examination. If you write the examples of 10 years old, they will not have a weightage. If you're writing on anything on volcano, you have to give an example of recent volcanic eruption. If you're writing something on earthquake, you give the recent examples of earthquakes. Then only your answer will have weightage. You have to always update. You have to always make updations. Then only your answers will have weightage, and then only he will give you more marks. Always try to find the recent examples in the context of your answer writing. This is one. Then you have to depend on reports. Reports. So these reports are given by governments. In your current affairs, we come across this. So these reports may be given by Agriculture Ministry, or sometimes it is given by important institutions. Institutions like, have you heard about IPCC? IPCC, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, which gives the data about droughts in India, droughts in the world, floods in India, floods in the world, etc. IPCC, etc. Then we have something called as NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, which also gives certain vital statistics that why the cyclones are increasing, why the El Nino is like that, why the La Nina is behaving like that. So you have to depend on the reports which are given by NOAA and NASA. So when I take geography, I'll be giving you the data. I'll help you to understand, and that will become the base for you to write the notes in the further part. I'll tell you how to make the extraction of that, right? So because when you're talking, if you're reading your current affairs, they say that at present, the Pacific Ocean has entered into La Nina phase. So El Nino has ended, La Nina phase. Now they all are based on certain datas. And when there is El Nino, we are having different impact. When there is La Nina, we are having different impacts. So we have to make the assessment of that. So we have to depend on certain reports. Then which magazines are good enough here? Current affairs. कोई magazine पढ़ते हो आप लोग? Down to Earth, perfect. Down to Earth. Then you have something called as Geography and You. Geography and You. Then do you read योजना एंड कुरुक्षेत्र? वहाँ से आपको जो भी एग्रीकल्चर टॉपिक मिलता है, यू टेक अ पार्ट. कुरुक्षेत्र एंड योजना. And योजना. Then PIB. एक्सेस करते हो PIB का? India's government which provides the schemes and data, Press Information Bureau. So these will be directly asked in your examination. कोई भी river linking project हो गया, या फिर they will ask about any type of events there. So if you are following this, they will help you in many formats. They will help you in many formats. Is that clear now? So this is what you have to keep your content. So keep your content as simple as possible. As simple as possible. If you are taking geography as an optional, then you have to make in detailed part. But this is more than sufficient. And along with that, you have to carry atlas. Atlas to be carried with you. Is that clear? So please bring them. Please carry that throughout your courses. That will help you to make the places to be identified. Map-based questions will be there. So you have to carry this atlas with you, and this atlas will help you in your international relations also. Many areas are there where you have to make assessment of your IR part, international relations. So that will help you even in the context of your IR part. Is that clear? So Atlas has to be carried with this. So these are the minimum things you should keep in the mind. Now next is the type of questions which were asked in UPSC mains, prelims and mains part. Now this is about mains. Now prelims will be taking somewhat later. Now this is the question which was asked in 2022, 2021. It means last year and before. So this year they will be starting from another 2 or 3 days. So in the class we will discuss this year's questions also. But these are the questions which are already been asked. Already been asked. Now the first question is, bring out the socio-economic effects of introduction of railways in different countries of the world. Now, such questions, you don't have any data in the context of your textbooks. You won't get anything. You won't get anything in this. Socio-economic effects of introduction railways. Now, what do you understand by this question? इसका मतलब क्या है? See, if you understand the question, your half work is done. Bring out the socio-economic effects. So the moment when we say 10 marks, it means 150 words. What is meaning of this question? Bring out socio-economic effects to introduction of railways in different countries of the world. Cultural? That is social or economic? Perfect. Then, that is economic. Then, this is how you have to make your references. In social, can we say it develops something called as nationalism? Railways, when you travel, nationalism, right? That is that. Bringing the families together. Then economic, you are talking about only raw materials. It transports only raw materials. Refineries, agriculture, coal. So first you should understand, railway is a mode of a transport. And it has been introduced in different phases. And when it gained importance, during which revolution? Which revolution railways were taken a strong point? Industrial revolution. So don't you think that you have to give a proper introduction? So railways become a backbone of industrial revolution, which helped in increasing economic development. Helped in increasing economic development. And in that perspective, can you write that in India the railways were introduced in 1853? Right. So you have given a proper introduction. At present, railways are playing a dominant role in India's economic development. Then you can mention their social benefits and economic benefits. Is it difficult to write? You have to make sure how you can segregate them. Social benefits you can mention, nationalism, connectivity, family, oneness, religious festivals, all that, unity you will find. Economic benefits, agriculture. So when the goods are transported, farmer will get more price or not? Raw materials, finished products, petroleums, coals, all these are important significance of the socio-economic part here. So you have given introduction, you have given their economic benefits. Now the way forward for such questions, again you have to give something. So in the present we can find that they are playing a very important role in the context, and now we find they have been diversified. Like we are having metro railways, and then we are having separate railways which are used to carry the freights, like dedicated freight corridors. Dedicated freight corridor. So what it signifies? It signifies railways presence in economic benefits. In India, we already started the dedicated freight corridors. So here the question is about railways and its economic benefit. This is how you have to organize. What are railways? They are one of the strong mode of transportation. And since Industrial Revolution, they have gained the momentum. In different countries, they become the torch bearers of setting up of industries because they transport raw material and also the complete products. You can give 1 or 2 examples of that. When we complete geography, you will come to know. Then how it helps in agrarian economy. Then updations of that. We are having many trains, like Vande Bharat trains are there, dedicated freight corridors are there. So Vande Bharat, are they making strong impact of social or not? Connectivity, right? So these all are referred. So you don't get them from textbooks. You have to make your linkages through your basic parts. Is that clear? Now take up the second question. Discuss the consequences of climate change on the food security in the tropical countries. And this is again 150 words. What do you understand by this? See the question. Can you get it from one textbook? Now here the question, if you read, discuss the consequence of climate change. Now I hope you know what is climate change. It is not only global warming. It talks about floods, it talks about droughts, it talks about heavy rainfall, it talks about all the fluctuations. Now when heavy rainfalls are there, when the droughts are there, right? So in that case, what happens to the agricultural crops? There will always be losses. So what type of losses you can find in the agricultural crops? Less productivity, then soil degradation, then they all will be included into the crops. They all are impact of that. Perfect. Apart from that, example?
Like materials, raw materials or...
No, here the question is impact of climate change. You should be careful with that. Impact of climate change. That is a result. That is a result of food security. If there is a shortage of food grain, then it will create inflation. Now the question is, climate change से food security पे कैसा impact पड़ता है? Availability of water, that's what he told. Drought conditions will be there. Yield will be decreased, that is one. Then when there is heavy rainfalls, the crops will be destroyed. When there is droughts, the crops will be destroyed. When there is a forest fires and fire seasons, the crops will be destroyed. All these are climate change impacts. Apart from that, whenever there is a fluctuation of the climates, don't you think that they will have pest attacks, disease, pests, disease? Will they